Good morning, everybody. Let's go and get started. A few weeks ago, Jesse came to me and asked me if I would teach a lesson on Ecclesiastes 4. I looked at the book and I thought, chapter 4, it's about a third of the way through. That's pretty good. Everybody be introduced to the book. Must be a good time to start. And then I started thinking back. Remember, my high school drama teacher said you introduce comedic relief about a third of the way through something. I thought, I'm not sure what Jesse's trying to tell me now, but maybe we'll have some fun today anyway. If you guys would indulge me just a second. My mom living in Kentucky, today is her birthday. And if I know Mom, she's going to be watching this presentation. So happy birthday, Mom. I love you. So let's go ahead and get started. Ecclesiastes. I think for the most part, people agree that if Solomon didn't write the whole book, he had a very, very strong influence in the book. Solomon, we believe, was one of the wisest, if not the wisest men ever on earth. We know that because he requested wisdom from God and was granted it. Not only was he granted wisdom, he was granted great riches, great power. So we know that Solomon had a lot going for himself when he was king. I was thinking through and came across a couple of quotes. And that doesn't show up quite as much as I hoped it would. We need to go a little bigger. But a couple of quotes from George Sayonara. The wisest mind has something yet to learn. I think it's very true. No matter how wise, how smart we think we are, there's still more that we can learn. There's always somebody that knows more than we do. There's always something out there we don't understand. Aili Martinez. The wisest man knows he knows nothing. The wisest man knows he knows nothing. So even with the great wisdom, there's still stuff for us to learn, still things for us to get to know better. In Plato, and I think this is my favorite of the three, I am the wisest man alive, for I know one thing, and that is I know nothing. Plato, probably one of the great philosophers in history, admitted he knows nothing. Why is that? Because even a wise person knows there's always something more to know. There's something I don't understand about the things I'm learning. And I think that's what Ecclesiastes is. I hope you, from the background of my images, it's a man searching for answers. And I think that's what Solomon is doing in the book of Ecclesiastes. He's searching for answers, things he doesn't know. There's things out there, I see this happening. I don't understand why. And I kind of was just thinking some things, and these are my personal thoughts. Why do bad things happen to people? How should I live? And what's important in life? I wonder about these things all the time. We look at our world around us today, and there's things that just don't make sense. And I think Solomon is experiencing this same phenomenon. I think as he's going through life, he's seen the best. He's been given the best. But yet he looks around him and he's going, that makes no sense. I don't understand why that's happened. How can God let that happen? And I think that just, to me, brings it much closer to me, how I live, how I think. I think back to Solomon, was given great wisdom by God, and he didn't know the answers. How am I supposed to know? How can I understand? And I don't know that we can. So let's dig into Ecclesiastes 4. Ecclesiastes 4, I believe, is Solomon continue his quest, his look for answers, his trying to understand what's going on around him. And I think, again, there's a couple of questions here that he's going to look for in this answer. Number one, Why do people suffer? Why do people allow bad things to happen? What is the purpose of work? Why is it important that on a daily basis I go to a job every day and work hard? Why is that important? And what's important to man? Why do I live my life? Why am I here? What am I supposed to be doing with my life? I'm going to ask if you guys would volunteer. If it were my class back in the teenage group, I'd call on somebody, but I'm not going to do that today. If you guys would help me out. And the one reason I appreciate you guys reading, it gives me a chance to get some water. I got a little bit of a scratchy throat today. So if somebody would you turn to Ecclesiastes chapter 4 and read verses 1 through 3 for me, please?
Again, I saw all the oppressions that are done under the sun, and behold, the tears of the oppressed, and they had no one to comfort them. On the side of their oppressors there was power, and there was no one to comfort them. And I thought the dead who are already dead more fortunate than the living who are still alive. But better than both is he who has not yet been and has not seen the evil deeds that are done under the sun. Then I saw that all toil and all skill and work came from a man's envy of his neighbor. This also is vanity and striving after the wind.
Thank you, Liz. Oppression. What is oppression? I looked up the definition. Oppression: prolonged cruel or unjust treatment or control. Do we feel oppressed ourselves? We see a history in our world of oppression. Go back to the Jewish people in Egypt. Slavery in our country, as hard as that is to think about. Hitler in Germany. How can somebody be that cruel to a group of people? We see it all throughout our history. There's slavery, not just in our country, but if you look back through history. Native Americans would capture each other's tribes and bring them into slavery. Why are they doing that? Free labor? I think it's deeper than that. And I look at today. Who gets noticed? A lot of people in our world, in our country in particular today, scream oppression. I'm oppressed. Somebody's not treating me fair. True? Maybe expanded a little bit, expanded reality? Possibly. But there is oppression. There are people that look to better themselves by putting others down. We see it every day. We hear it on the news. And as much as I hate to watch the news anymore, it drives me nuts. But we hear it all across the world. This group is pushing this group, taking advantage of that group. And then I roll it back and I go, well, what about these special interest groups today? Is there a balance? Is there a reality factor there? I think, as Solomon says, there is oppression in the world. And I think we see it. We're aware of it. Do we experience it? Maybe. Do we live with it? Maybe. And then also look at what I want to call, and I'm not sure this is a real good, accurate definition, but self-induced oppression. What do I do to myself to become oppressed? I'm probably as anti-drug as anybody. I don't try not to take aspirin. I don't take anything. But we have people that abuse drugs, abuse alcohol. Are they oppressed for that? Are they putting themselves in an oppressed position? Maybe. Can we help them? Probably. What about mental health? We hear about that a lot today. I think we have people struggling today, and I think it's becoming more and more. We're starting to understand it better today, maybe. Sometimes I think we understand things and we maybe overinflate what our understanding is. But I think it's becoming very important in our society today, mental health issues. What about debt? I go buy this cool new thing. Really shouldn't buy it. Allow myself to get in a situation where it's a struggle for me to continue. Is that a form of oppression? Am I oppressing myself? I think to a lot degree, yes. I think, it's bad enough when somebody takes advantage of me, but when I put myself in a situation to be taken advantage of, I need to think about that. What about the future? How do we become better? What do we need to do? What is it at the root of oppression that's the problem?
Sin.
Sin? What else?
Depending on the wrong power.
Depending on the wrong power, absolutely. Absolutely. Anybody else? What is the root of oppression?
Selfish desire.
I like that, selfish desire. I think we see that a lot in history. I want something for me, and you can help me get that, and with my power over you, I can do that. I think there's an arrogance in oppression.
What he's saying here is that power is what's corrupting. And it's funny coming from Solomon, who was powerful and corrupted and had his own slaves.
Yep.
That he thinks it's such a terrible thing. He's really being critical here.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. Great comment. Somebody else say something?
I said, I think a lot of it's greed.
Greed. Greed. And I think as we go through chapter 4, we're going to come back to that thought over and over. I think that's very good. And yes, and I like that. Hypocritical perspective, isn't it? Solomon had everything at his fingertips. He could have had anything he wanted. How did he get there? Was there oppression in his history? Did he take advantage of people? Did David take advantage of people? I think it's interesting that, I don't know how this relates into this lesson necessarily, but because I don't think there's really a correlation. But yesterday we had the coronation of the King of England. They still want to hold on to that kingdom, that king as a power, even though he really has no power. He has no ability necessarily to control the governance of the people. Lots of money. Can go get what he needs. Probably has somebody's ear. He may not have the pure power to make rule, but he can certainly talk to the people that can. I think it's very interesting, Solomon talking about oppression and what he sees and why he thinks it's wrong. Is he struggling a little bit with conscience? Probably. And like I said, I think as we go through this chapter, it's going to keep rearing its head. I think the greed, the lust for power, the need to be able to be better than somebody is going to keep popping up over and over and over. But then he goes into a couple of thoughts that I find very interesting. It's better be dead than deal with the oppression we're dealing with today. Man, what a pessimistic view of society. You're better off dead than living with what we're living through today. Have we ever felt like that?
Because there was a time that I realized I was worth more dead than I was alive.
I would venture to say everyone in this room has felt like that at some point in their life. I can remember telling my mom when I was a kid, I'd rather be dead, throwing my fit or my temper tantrum. Have we ever felt like that? What happens when that really becomes the dominant force in our life? How do we react? What hope do we have at that point? But then he takes it a step further. You'd been better never being born Man, the ultimate defeatism. I had no reason to ever be born. I should never have been here. I'd have been so much better off never being born. They'd never know who I was. That whole thought, I just want to wrap myself up. How do you ever come out of that? If that's really the way you believe. But Solomon is seeing this. He's looking at all the suffering that's going on with the people he's governing. You're better off dead, and you're probably even better off never being born. I don't know how you ever overcome that thought, if that truly is where you are. And it makes me think today. We hear about all the suicide. We hear about, just breaks my heart. What was it, a few months ago at one of the schools here in St. Johns County, a kid jumped from the second floor. 16, 17-year-old kid had nothing else to live for. Why? Why? Why are we as a society letting that happen? It's not just us, guys. Solomon has seen the same thing. That whole mentality, I'd be better off dead. That's where we're at. So, it's heartbreaking. That Solomon is seeing that. We're seeing it today. We've seen it all through history. I think today probably it's more obvious. We have so much news, so much 24-hour recaps of what's going on in the world. Everybody sees everything's going on across the world. But I think it's been happening all through history. And I think it goes back to Solomon is telling us right here. People had that level of frustration, lack of hope. How do we get past that? I think it's interesting Solomon doesn't ever give us an answer. He's just raising the questions. And we'll do this through the whole chapter. But I think we have the same thing. We raise the questions. Do we ever come up with an answer? I think there are answers, and I think we'll get there eventually.
I think that, that student was in a group home, felt like nobody loved him, for whatever other reasons. That sometimes I think as Christians, sometimes we need to open our eyes a little more and see what other people are going through. It's hard because, we have our own struggles as well, but I think sometimes just being in our own line, in our own little rut, that we don't see what's going on with other people. And I think that would help so many of the oppressed that are not, that are feeling that way.
100% agree.
I think there's a saying that we're kind of hearing these days, bad things happen when good people do nothing. And you can apply that across the board. It happens in government, it happens in our personal lives, it happens in every situation.
Yep, absolutely. How many times have we, and I in my mind, because every day when I go downtown, which is not very often anymore, but when I go downtown, there's always this one corner. I come off the interstate down to downtown, and I guarantee you there will be somebody with a sign on that corner. Need help me. I've got 2 kids. I need money. I need whatever. How many times I look at that and go, you really don't need it. Do I know? What if they truly didn't? And maybe the $10 or whatever I throw at them would help. But do I do it? Yep. And we're yep.
Need of help, but this is what I look at. If you're that bad and need help, that your own family or no church or no other organization wants to help you, there's something wrong with you.
But to your point, there may be that 1 or 2 that we could help. And we've gotten so desensitized to that. Oppression really, is it meaning that much to us anymore? Do we pay attention? We hear it so much in the news that we go, "Pfft." Like I said, we've got all these special interest groups. It's important to them to show, I'm oppressed, because they get funding.
Even if they are not true, even if it isn't true, your heart is good to give it to them. That's how I feel about it.
And I'm not going to argue either way. And I truly think it's because like I said, I drive by them most every day, and I don't do anything. And then I think later, man, what if they really needed it? And I think we have to look inside ourselves to figure out what is the right path there. You're absolutely right. Probably 90%, 80% of those out there don't need it. My wife, as you guys are aware, used to work at Steinmart out at the beach. And there was this one guy she would always talk about, homeless guy, that would come into the store. He's always dressed fairly nice. You know, he had clean clothes somehow. She knew he was homeless because he lived across the street in that wooded area. Probably somebody that could use help, but he didn't want it. He could come in. His purpose was to go wash his hands in the restroom. That's the reason he would come in. And she'd be watching. How do we know? How do we segment those that are oppressed, those that need our help, and those that are trying to play us for fools or whatever? It's a hard call. Would somebody turn to or read verses 4 through 8 for me, please?
Again, I considered all travail and every right work, for this is a man and anxiety of his neighbor. This is also vanity and vexation of spirit. The fool foldeth his hands together and eateth his own flesh. Better is a handful with quietness than both hands full of travail and vexation of spirit. Then I returned, and I saw vanity under the sun. Therefore is one alone, and there is not a second yea. He hath neither child nor brother, no end of all his labor. Neither is his eye satisfied with riches. Neither saith he, for whom do I labor, and to reap my soul good? This is also vanity, yea, it is a sore travail.
Thank you. I think it's interesting that the writer here goes from oppression to work. Is he just rambling thoughts, or is there a method to his madness going from oppression to work? I don't know. I'm torn. I think it could be either way. I think he does transition between these thoughts, and maybe there was some thought, maybe in his mind, this is a way to overcome oppression, is to work. Or, and I probably think this may be a little more like it, because of some of the comments he uses when it comes to work. He talks about a skillful worker. Again, going back in my history when I was a kid, I would go to my grandparents in the summers. My grandfather was a carpenter. Worked sun up to sundown-ish, building homes. Before he went to work, he had to go take care of the cows, feed all his livestock, take care of his garden, come home after the evening, take care of the weeds in the garden. Worked hard. But why did he do that? Had to do it to sustain himself. My mom had 7 brothers and sisters, actually 8. One passed away when he was young. That's the way they worked. He had a steady job for money, farm in the garden for food. Solomon here is talking about a skillful worker. In my mind, he had both. I learned a lot from that man. But the thing that surprises me that Solomon immediately turns to is you're a skillful worker, makes others envious. This man's jealous of you because you're good at what you do. Is that a form of oppression, kind of rolling back? That's why I think maybe there is a little bit of a thought to what he's talking about here. I can be good just taking care of myself and my family, but somebody's going to make me feel bad for it. And then you go a little beyond that. The people that are jealous. And I think this is a little bit of a warning that Solomon throws out here. Are the jealous people those that refuse to work? Maybe. Maybe they're the ones that aren't getting ahead because I'm not quite as good as he is at what he does. I think in today's society, we're so corporate involved. There's a layer to our reporting structure. How many times has somebody felt like that person got their promotion because of who they know, how they talk to somebody? Again, a little bit of my history. I manage a group of technical people. I can't hold a candle to anything those guys do. I go to them every day. Help me understand what you do. Help me understand why you do this. And I wonder sometimes if they look at me and say, how did he get that job? How come he's my manager? Because like I said, I've got a technical background, spent a lot of years doing technology, but today has gone so fast I can't keep up. These guys are so good at what they do, what they can see. But is somebody jealous? I don't think anybody on my team is, but who knows what they say behind closed doors. But in today's society, we see this. A person gets ahead, a person does something. They get that advancement. Why them and not me? I believe 100% we should be skilled. We should do a good job at what we're asked to do. If you go to work and you don't give it your best effort, I think that's wrong. We had an instance at work a few weeks ago, and I manage the guys that do the networking and the infrastructure, all the servers and stuff. So security is a big concern of mine. And we monitor what happens in our network. We popped up on our network the other day. Somebody had a PlayStation hooked up to our network. You talk about the ultimate arrogance to me. You're going to come to work, I'm going to pay you to come and do a job, and you're going to play video games all day. Is that a person that's making fun of the skilled worker? Look what I got away with. I think Solomon is seeing this. He's talking to this. Be skilled. Care about what you do. But understand that if you're good, somebody's going to be jealous. And then his warning, like I said, to those that refuse to work. Can somebody turn to 2 Thessalonians 3, verses 10 and 11 for me, please?
For even when we were with you, we used to give you this order: if anyone is not willing to work, then he is not to eat either. For we hear that some among you are leading an undisciplined life, doing no work at all, but acting like busybodies.
The key part of that to me, though, is if you don't work, you shouldn't eat. Kind of going back to those people that won't take care of themselves. Just give it to me. I've earned it. I deserve whatever I need to live. I'm not going to work for it. I'm not going to put any effort into it. Just give it to me. I've earned it. I'm here, so give it to me. I think it's what Solomon and Thessalonians is talking about here. Work. It's important. You'll feel good about yourself. You'll improve society. And don't be lazy. It's really important that we sustain ourselves. But why do we work? Like I said, we work to sustain ourselves. But I think he also has a little bit of a tone here. Your work should be appropriate. He talks about 2 fists, or 1 fist empty. So 1 working hard, 1 empty. We talk a lot about in the corporate world today, work-life balance. I think that's what he's alluding to here. You got to understand, work hard. When you're on the job, do what's right for those people that are paying you. But when you go home, be home. I think one of the commentaries I was reading said that this is talking about workaholics. I'm not sure I agree with that. I don't think that's necessarily the point here. Maybe a little bit. There may be a tinge of that. But I think the purpose of your work is what's more important, more what he's talking about here. Not how hard you work, how much you work. I've met a lot of people that their whole life was what they did. I want to be a technical person. I love technology. I like writing books. I want to write a book, and I'm going to write, when I get those thoughts, I want to work. I'm going to write those books. Teachers. My mom was a teacher. She would stay up late at night grading papers, putting comments on these reports people wrote. It's not about working hard or working long. It's why do you do it? If you're a workaholic only because you want life's riches, to get power, to gain notoriety, that's your wrong purpose. Work to sustain yourself. Work to take care of your family. And find that balance. Family's important, guys. Life around work is important. Working hard is important. But find that balance. And I think that's really where he's going to here with this. Not necessarily being a workaholic, but why are you that workaholic? Find that reason. Find that balance. Find that empty hand where you have a life outside of your work. Don't be that person that goes to work. Your total goal is power and gain over others. And I think, like I said, he transitions in verses 7 and 8, which we just read, talking about a person that works but has no family. It's a lonely existence. Would somebody, starting again in verse 7, read 7 through 12 for me, please?
Then I returned, and I saw vanity under the sun. There is one alone, and there is not a second. Yea, he hath neither child nor brother, yet is there no end of all his labor. Neither is his eye satisfied with riches. Neither saith he, For whom do I labor, and bereave my soul of good? There is also vanity, yea, it is a sore travail. 2 are better than 1, because they have a good reward for their labor. For if they fall, the one will lift up his fellow. But woe to him that is alone when he falleth, for he hath not another to help him up. Again, if 2 lie together, then they have heat. But how can one be warm alone? And if one prevail against him, 2 shall withstand him. And a threefold cord is not quickly broken.
Thank you. Companionship. Like I said, I think he, in verses 7 and 8, kind of did that transition from work, kind of that work-life balance, into having that life outside of work, having companionship. And why does he say it's important? It's not good for man to be alone. We are social creatures. Is there times for us to get in the closet, find a quiet spot, and get our thoughts together? I think so. Meditation, prayer. I think it's all important. Gives you a chance to kind of refresh. But we are social beings. We don't like being alone for the most part. We want that structure. If somebody would, just real quick, turn to Genesis chapter 2 and verse 18 for me, please.
Then the Lord God said, "It is not good that the man should be alone. I will make him a helper fit for him."
God had just created man. Oh. Thanks, Steve. You confused me there. God had just created man. He quickly saw that man needed companionship. It wasn't good for man to be all by himself. So he created Eve. And I think it's continued. If you look at history, you don't see people out running by themselves. You see people forming cliques and tribes and whatever else it may be in life. People group together. Safety. And like he says, if I fall down and I'm with a group, somebody can help me up. If I'm cold, somebody can keep me warm. There is safety in numbers. There's strength in numbers. He talks about if it's a one-on-one fight, 50-50 odds. But if I've got somebody with me, there's a strength there. I've got support. I've got help. I've got somebody that can help take care of me.
I think it's kind of an interesting thought, and going back to Genesis, I've never even considered this, but what if Adam was there with Eve when Satan tempted her, and would that have been played out differently? And all this, I think, certainly ties back to, and I'm sure this is probably where you're going to wrap it up, but with God and with the church. And, you go back to the beginning of the chapter and talking about the oppressed and the oppressors who equally have no one to comfort them. And to me, I think that's the key of why it's so vain and so sad, is because there is no comfort. Yes, the oppression is bad, but it's the lack of comfort. And, Wendy was talking about it. And, that's what God brings, certainly, but we as the church are to be there for one another. And even talking about labor, why do we labor? Yes, to provide for our family, but we're just accumulating riches and keeping up with the Joneses, as he kind of mentioned. That rivalry, it's vain too, and there's no point to it, and that can lead to this concept of it's all meaningless. But if we're realizing we do have a purpose, which is to glorify God, and He's blessed us with our talents, our jobs, and to bring glory to Him. There's a lot of different factors to that, but when we think about giving to the church and the mission of why we're on earth, and that brings purpose and joy and meaning. And so it all, I think, can tie back into God and the church.
I absolutely agree. Maybe jumped a little ahead on me, but that's okay. I like that. But he's absolutely right. I think we as people, we need that companionship. We need that association. We need to have those people around us for support and strength. Loneliness. If I'm by myself, it's hard. I don't know if anybody's ever truly been lonely in here, where you absolutely had nobody you could call. I can easily call my mom. I can call my wife, Sherry. But if truly being alone, it's not a good situation. And I think, to wrap up the comment, and I think Jesse's kind of leading where I was going to go with this. The last comment in verse 12, a threefold cord cannot be broken. What is he alluding to here? Is it family? Would somebody flip to Matthew chapter 18 for me and read verse 20? What is he truly talking about, a threefold cord?
For where two or three have gathered together in my name, I am there in their midst.
Two or three are gathered together, I am there. Is a threefold cord family? or is it God? Is that extra cord that we have? I think it's important that we understand that we have our friends, we have our family. I truly believe he's referencing God in this. I think we can talk about kids, but I think God's the most important.
Companionship. I've seen it go so many different ways. One of the things I think that hurts me, and that's my soul and my feeling, is when I walk in someplace and somebody doesn't have anybody to visit them, or I've seen anybody. Just for them to know that you care is unbelievable. It's such a strong force. And we forget those people that can't get out because they're not with us. You might forget somebody else because they're singing, or a better singer, or a prayer, or somebody else, but look at the ones that are not here. Just send a card, make a phone call, stop and see them. I don't know how many times I've stopped to see somebody. Said, have anybody seen you lately or called? No. And it's a shame. But we need to do a better job in our organization, the church especially, that we look out for these people.
Yeah, I think to that point, and we got about 4 minutes left here, but my daughter she works part-time now as a physical therapist at a senior living home. And when COVID hit, she said, Dad, it is so sad to see these people that were used to family, friends coming and visiting, and now nothing. And these people have no idea why. They can't understand it. She said their personalities, their whole outlooks changed when that happened, just I think 100% to that point. It's important. We need to have that association. And I think it's also important that we realize that God needs to be part of that group as well. And then the last group is somebody, 13, 16. Since we're short here, we won't read that. But I think in verses 13 through 16, kind of what we've been talking a little bit here, selfish ambition, I think is what he's talking about. That popularity. We strive to be the most popular person. We want people to give us, tell us how awesome we are, how smart we are, wear the coolest clothes. And I think back probably kids, high school, pretty big fact of life that they deal with that a lot. But I think we do too, even in our jobs, our daily lives. And you know what? Even as I was going through this and reading through this, I thought, I was very nervous about this lesson. And I got to this part and I was going, am I wanting to do a good job because I want somebody to come up and pat me on the back after and say, well done? Or are my thoughts right? Am I wanting to do it because I want people to think, pay attention to what God's telling us, showing us he needs to be a very strong part of our life? Where was my mentality? And I think we do that every day. Am I doing a good job at work because I want somebody on there, when they do the call-outs on our monthly meetings, say, Nick did a good job? Or am I doing it because I want to do a good job because it's the right thing to do? Am I not talking about Jesus to somebody because I won't be popular anymore? Where's my motivation? What's important to me? Why am I doing the things I'm doing on a daily basis? And I think this is what Solomon's talking about. The whole book is, what's your motivation? What's important to you? What am I doing to help others? Thank you guys. Appreciate the time.